My mum is mean and gone too far and I don't want a relationship with her. I am struggling with my relationship with my parents. For a bit of background, sorry it's long. Me and my sister have never had a good relationship with our mum. My mum communicates through verbal and, when we were younger, physical abuse. She was a stay-at-home mum and obsessed with having a clean house. For example, we would be shouted at for leaving a glass on the side after a drink, using the bathroom after she had cleaned it. The first thing she ever said/screamed to my now husband was, "Take your shoes off," the second I opened the door so he would not step on the kitchen floor with shoes on. If we didn't do what we were told, we would be screamed at and hit. Our old neighbors told my dad they were moving because they could not stand living next to us with the constant shouting, and we rarely had friends around because they were terrified. People describe my dad as the nicest person you would ever meet, really laid back and friendly. We used to beg him to divorce my mum and told him we would go with him. I used to call him in tears after all the horrible things she would say. She called me a slut constantly in my teens. Honestly, there was no reason for this, but his response was always that we should ignore her, which is ridiculous that children would have to ignore their mum's bullying behavior. I got a job on my 13th birthday because she would unreasonably control what I could buy/do with my own money, like telling my hairdresser to cut all my hair off because she didn't like it long and she was paying. Thankfully the hairdresser refused because I was begging her not to. I moved out at 17 because things just got worse as we got older. Over the past few years our relationship has improved, but there has been a few instances of limited contact and fallouts, mostly because we refuse to listen to her and, as she says, do what you want because you will anyway when making choices for our own lives. I now realize it's because I've never respected her opinion and have always made choices for myself. As kids we also learned to lie or not tell her the truth to avoid the conflicts that would inevitably happen anyway. So now in December I had a miscarriage. My body did not know the baby had died, so we went for a private scan for photos to give out for Christmas, expecting to be 10 weeks but instead found no heartbeat. I had surgery to remove the baby. Everyone was sympathetic and we were recovering mentally/physically. My parents have never hosted Christmas. We always used to go to my dad's sister's house, and then when we got older I always hosted. This year my mum was working for a couple of hours in the morning, a cleaner in a care home. It was just the four of us as my sister limits contact and was at her BFS. They called and said they were setting off. Great, we were quickly walking the dog and would see them in an hour. An hour later they are sat beeping the horn outside the house because it was cold and they didn't want to get out if we weren't in. It was literally a quick dog walk an hour ago, but whatever, we are in. Then they come in and immediately there's questions about when dinner is ready. This was 11 a.m. I said it would be 2 hours, early for Christmas dinner. And then that's when the mood started. I opened my presents too slowly. I had $2 fizz, one too many apparently. Dinner wasn't ready, the house was cold, she was tired and went for a nap in the corner. We put on a film and asked if they wanted to watch. Mum said no, she would tune in and out and if she liked it she would watch it at home. WTF. The mood continued on to Boxing Day until eventually I told Dad they should leave if they were just going to be miserable because we did not need a rubbish Christmas. Dad, in true form, said no, they would stay. They went shopping and the mood continued into the next morning when eventually they said they would go. Later I found out that Mum had also told Dad they should leave on Boxing Day, but he told her no too. My husband called them the next day and asked what was wrong, and then I got screamed at that they are so worried about us eating and drinking so much and she can't cope. For context, we are not skinny. I'm a UK size 12, and never have been, but we are not insanely overweight, and it was Christmas and obviously I had not had a single drink while pregnant. We didn't see them for 3 months and now it's almost a year later and I just feel like I can't trust them. I don't understand how you could be so cruel at the worst time in our lives and why we would want to open ourselves back up to that. My mum on the other hand thinks everything is back to normal. The last time we spoke she told me that her friend's son, who is dying of terminal cancer, has got fatter and so has his 7-year-old niece, and then asked if me and her were friends again, to which I said nothing and she didn't even notice. My husband wants to have a relationship with my parents because they are not bad all of the time, but I just don't trust them anymore. I feel so overwhelmed by it/them and the thought of having to see them, but I just don't think they deserve us. What can I do? Sorry it's so long. I hate drama and this feels like a lifetime of parents' drama coming to a head. What should I do? Is it worth fixing? How much do you put up with? Story 2. Why did my husband want a separation, the file for divorce, but continues to mess with my emotions like he wants me? Why did my husband want a separation, move out, and file for divorce, but still comes around and plays with my emotions. There is childhood trauma on my end that has caused some issues within our marriage, but before we separate for 1.5 years he would say he's going through midlife crisis, or he was unhappy, or depressed, or it was me, nothing consistent, and he would throw the divorce word at me over and over, or say he's moving out, but 2 days after any time he said those words he would say he loves me, make plans with me, etc., like nothing happened. Then finally after 1.5 years he left one day, says he wanted separation, and then filed for a divorce. He told me it's because I never changed, and he gave me every chance to change. I advised him. He never told me exactly what I was doing wrong, never gave me a definite answer, and would just say it's him, depression, midlife crisis, and as far as throwing the divorce word out, I felt it was a threat, and only because 1 to 2 days later he would act like nothing happened or that he wanted a divorce. So as far as him saying he warned me 1.5 years he was gonna file, I felt because he tossed it out there during arguments only and then go BK to loving me, I think those were empty threats and not chances for me to change. During the first 3 months of our separation I have been doing therapy for my past trauma, and a few times he would come around and want to see how I'm doing, initiate hugs, kissing, and say he hoped for us, talk about moving BK in a few weeks, but wants me to keep doing my therapy. And during those visits if we had a disagreement he would throw it all away and say you will never change, I don't want to be married to you, and blow he IFF for 7 to 10 days. When we would talk again, he would mention, see, we can't even get along when we are separated. I would address that the therapy I'm receiving is for my individual trauma and it's not marriage counseling, and the reason why we can't get along is because we aren't doing marriage counseling like I also have begged for us to do, and the therapy I'm receiving is for my individual childhood trauma, and though it will help within our marriage, it's not going to solve our marriage problems without seeking a therapist for those problems. So about 2 weeks ago he advised me he wanted me to focus 100% on my therapy to help me be happy again, and if he calls or stops by not to talk about or ask if we are gonna reconcile. So I did just that. A week ago was our 6th wedding anniversary, and my therapist advised me it was okay to write him a letter and get him a card as long as I didn't expect anything back for it or it possibly being tossed and not read. So I wrote a 5-page letter expressing how at times my PTSD, trauma has caused marital issues and would have gotten help sooner for myself and marriage counseling for us, but I never truly was told what the problem was. Like I indicated above, he always had a different reason why he wasn't happy, and that I am sorry, etc., etc. The morning of our anniversary I left on his vehicle at his new place and sent him a message informing him I had dropped off a card. Hours later he calls me and asks if I would go on a mini road trip and stay overnight in a hotel. Mind you, he has been gone 3 months and the longest he's visited is 2 HRS. At one time part of me was saying no, don't do it, he's gonna hurt your feelings. Part of N said if you don't go you may never get another opportunity to sleep next to him or be around him for 24 hours. So I gave in, went with him on a mini road trip and stayed in a hotel suite. I cried at times which seemed to upset him, but told him I was just emotional because though I'm happy we are spending our anniversary together, I feel like if I might get hurt by doing so. He kept ignoring my feelings and wanted to mess around in our hot tub in our hotel room and then have intimate with me. The next day we drove BK to our hometown. He said he would stop by later to retrieve his mail and visit. When he stopped by later he played with the dog, watched a TV show with me, and before he headed out he walked over and asked for a hug, so I got up and hugged him, and before I could pull away he kissed me. Days following that he would randomly make small talk via text about the weather or ask if he had mail, etc., and I would reply. Then today he randomly asks what I'm doing and I replied saying I was doing yard work. He then said he was bored, had nothing to do, so I replied saying he's more than welcome to come here to get out of his apartment and help me since we live in the country with massive 10 acres of yard work that needs tending. He replied saying sorry I don't feel comfortable being there, so I replied WDYM, you have been coming here and I don't understand why you're uncomfortable now. He replied saying you never needed me when I lived there, so why should I help you now we are separated and I don't feel comfortable being there, it's too hard. So then I call him instead and ask him for better explanation since his messages weren't making sense, and he flat out starting yelling at me saying I don't need you, I'm trying to forget you and I don't want you be married to you. Then he hung up. So here I am hurt all over again. I feel used. I feel like he took me on an overnight anniversary trip after being separated for 3 months, because for 2 weeks before that day I hadn't asked him for anything, or texted him saying I need him or want him, only because he specifically told me he wanted me to focus on myself and not us and not to ask about our future anymore. So I feel he wanted to see if I was over him or if I still loved him by getting me to go away with him, cause he feared I was moving on since I left him alone. So he used me then used me again the day after our anniversary. Especially since then I've done nothing but give him space and left him alone unless he asked me something via text and 6 days later out of nowhere says he doesn't want me or the marriage or feel comfortable around me. So I'm writing this needing advice because I'm pulling my hair out. Why is he up and down? Why did he take me away on our anniversary and 6 days later say he doesn't want me anymore, and 100% I didn't do or say snitching for him to say that to me. My heart can't take any more jabs or games. I'm hurting because he's sending me mixed signals and I feel he's leading me on, and then once Tez got me on cloud 9 he jabs my heart again. Please anyone? I need to know what to do or understand why he's doing this to me. Story 3. Husband wants me to hurt more than he is hurt, before beginning the reconciliation. I had a EA/BA. It was the biggest mistake of my life and I would do anything to make it right. I read everything, booked IC for me and MC for us. I presented it all to my BH. He shook it off. He told me that he is gonna decide how reconciliation will happen. Next day he told me to get on my knees and apologize. I did, and he said he doesn't feel I meant it, and I did, pleaded that I do. He told me to stay like that until he says so. I did for half an hour, then he told me to get up. Next he told me that he will be taking another woman to our planned vacation next month and he will not likely be monogamous to me for some time. He also told me that he is going to have intimate with another woman in our marital bed in our house on my birthday in December. He told me make plans on that day and night so that he can have whole house to himself. He also told me that he has no plans to keep it a secret, but he will not advertise it, and if someone asks me about it I should tell them that we are in open relationship, i.e. to present to the public that we both are dating other people so that he is not judged, and if my cheating came out that he won't feel humiliated. He told me to repent every day and be a good wife. Basically he wants me to take up all the cleaning and cooking and told me that I had lots of free time having intimate with other men, so I should use that free time to devote myself to our home even when I am sick. I can't ask for help from him anymore. He also want me to take more financial burden of household so that he can spend his disposable income with other women. I lost control. I started bawling my eyes out. He looked at me and told me I deserve it. I told him it's very cruel and he said it is. I love him, so I have to prove my love for him, so he wants to know how much am I willing to sacrifice for him. Am I willing to never enjoy my own birthday ever again for him? Am I willing to work hard so that he can spend time with other women? I asked him how long and he said that until I am as hurt as him. Until I don't experience soul-crushing pain as him. Until my hurt surpasses my guilt and regret and I find it as hard to forgive him as he finds forgiving me. He said he would know, that he knows me better than anyone. He wants to know that I am willing to forgive like I want him to do. He says only women who loves him more than anything will go through all this. Then we will go to therapy and learn to forgive each other on equal footing. I tried to talk to him, but he told me he is gonna have intimate with other women whether I divorce him or not. I have to decide whether I love him enough. If not, he will let me go and forget me like a bad dream.